There you go.
Good. Okay. Welcome everyone. Today it's just Andrea, Geoffrey, and myself. John Robert may pop in. Marco should be back next session, and more are welcome. We finished last time with a complete reading of Canto IV, Book One, Canto IV, The Secret Knowledge. And how do we want to continue with Canto V? Does anyone have any thoughts?
Well, what we have done is we read one section till the section break, then we see if there is any discussion, and then we continue, as long as the time lasts per section. I think that is what we have done.
That's what we have done. Does that still feel like what we should do going forward?
Yeah, there's a section break just 2.5 pages in.
Uh-huh.
So we could see then, and
okay,
or maybe we could going to the next section break, which is I think
sure, page
4 pages in. So it maybe to the stop at the second section break.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too. And yeah, I was thinking of after the end of book one, talking a little bit more about the narrative arc and going back into where we are in the story, and have more a roundtable kind of after we finish the cycle of book one, have a just more of a discussion about what Savitri is, about mantra, the effective mantra. All that stuff that's helpful, I think, for getting deeper with the text.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. So shall we begin with a meditation, and then we'll start reading Andrea, then Geoffrey, then me.
Yep.
Good.
Canto V, the yoga of the king, the yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. This knowledge first he had of time-born men, admitted through a curtain of bright mind that hangs between our thoughts and absolute sight. He found the occult cave, the mystic door, near to the well of vision in the soul.
Geoffrey, could you mute?
Sorry.
Thank you. He found the occult cave, the mystic door, near to the well of vision in the soul, and entered where the wings of glory brood in the silent space where all is forever known. Indifferent to doubt and to belief, avid of the naked real's single shock, he shore the cord of mind that ties the earth heart and cast away the yoke of matter's law. The body's rules bound not the spirit's powers. When life had stopped its beats, death broke not in. He dared to live when breath and thought were still. Thus could he step into that magic place which few can even glimpse with hurried glance, lifted for a moment from mind's labored works and the poverty of nature's earthly sight. All that the gods have learned is their self-known. There, in a hidden chamber, closed and mute, are kept the record graphs of the cosmic scribe, and there the tables of the sacred law. There is the book of being's index page. The text and glossary of the Vedic truth are there. The rhythms and meters of the stars, significant of the movements of our fate. The symbol powers of number and of form, and the secret code of the history of the world and nature's correspondence with the soul are written in the mystic heart of life.
In the glow of the spirit's room of memories, he could recover the luminous marginal notes dotting with light the crabbed ambiguous scroll, rescue the preamble and the saving clause of the dark agreement by which all is ruled that rises from material nature's sleep to clothe the everlasting in new shapes. He could reread now and interpret new its strange symbol letters, scattered abstruse signs, resolve its oracle and its paradox, its riddling phrases and its blindfold terms, the deep oxymoron of its truth's repliques, and recognize as a just necessity its hard conditions for the mighty work, nature's impossible Herculean toil only her warlock wisecraft could enforce. It's the law of the opposition of the gods, its list of inseparable contraries. The dumb great mother in her cosmic trance, exploiting for creation's joy and pain, infinity's sanction to the birth of form, accepts indomitably to execute the will to know in an inconscient world, the will to live under a reign of death, the thirst for rapture in a heart of flesh, and works out through the appearance of a soul by a miraculous birth in plasm and gas, the mystery of God's covenant with the night. Once more was heard in the still cosmic mind the eternal promise to his laboring force, inducing the world passion to begin, the cry of birth into mortality, and the opening verse of the tragedy of time. Out of the depths the world's buried secret rose. He read the original ukase kept backed in the locked archives of the spirit's crypt, and saw the signature and fiery seal of wisdom on the dim power's hooded work, who builds in ignorance the steps of light.
A sleeping deity opened deathless eyes. He saw the unshaped thought in soulless forms, new matter pregnant with spiritual sense. Mind dare the study of the unknowable, life its gestation of the golden child. In the light, flooding thought's blank vacancy, interpreting the universe by soul signs, He read from within the text of the without. The riddle grew plain and lost its catch obscure. A large luster lit the mighty page. A purpose mingled with the whims of time. A meaning met the stumbling pace of chance, and fate revealed a chain of seeing will. A conscious wideness filled the old dumb space. In the void he saw throned the omniscience supreme. A will, a hope immense now seized his heart. And to discern the superhuman's form, he raised his eyes to unseen spiritual heights, aspiring to bring down a greater world. The glory he had glimpsed must be his home. A brighter, heavenlier sun must soon illume this dusk room with its dark internal stare. The infant soul in its small nursery school, mid objects meant for a lesson hardly learned, outgrow its early grammar of intellect and its imitation of earth nature's arts, its earthly dialect to God language change. In living symbols, study reality and learn the logic of the infinite. The ideal must be nature's common truth. The body illumined with the indwelling God, the heart and mind feel one with all that is. A conscious soul live in a conscious world.
As through a mist a sovereign peak is seen, the greatness of the eternal spirit appeared. Exiled in a fragmented universe, amid half-semblances of diviner things. These now could serve no more his regal turn. The immortal's pride refused the doom to live a miser of the scanty bargain made between our littleness and bounded hopes and the compassionate infinitudes. His height repelled the lowness of earth's state. A wideness discontented with its frame resiled from poor assent to nature's terms, the harsh contract spurned, and the diminished lease. Only beginnings are accomplished here. Our basis matter seems alone complete, an absolute machine without a soul. Or all seems a misfit of half ideas, or we settle with a voice of earthly form, a hurried, imperfect glimpse of heavenly things, guesses and travesties of celestial types. Here chaos sorts itself into a world, a brief formation drifting in the void, apings of knowledge, unfinished arcs of power, flamings of beauty into earthly shapes, love's broken reflexes of unity swim, fragment mirrorings of a floating sun. A packed assemblage of crude, tentative lives are pieced into a tessellated whole. There is no perfect answer to our hopes. There are blind, voiceless doors that have no key. Thought climbs in vain and brings a borrowed light, cheated by counterfeits, sold to us in life's mart. Our hearts clutch at a forfeited heavenly bliss. There is provender for the mind's satiety. I never know how to say that word. Satiety. There are thrills of the flesh, but not the soul's desire.
Here, even the highest rapture time can give is a mimicry of ungrasped beatitudes, a mutilated statue of ecstasy, a wounded happiness that cannot live, a brief felicity of mind or sense thrown by the world's power to her body slave, or a simulacrum of enforced delight in the seraglios of ignorance. For all we have acquired soon loses worth, an old disvalued credit in time's bank. Imperfections check, drawn on the unconscient, and inconsequence dogs every effort made, and chaos waits on every cosmos formed. In each success, a seed of failure lurks. He saw the doubtfulness of all things here, the uncertitude of man's proud, confident thought, the transience of the achievements of his force. A thinking being in an unthinking world, an island in the sea of the unknown. He is a smallness trying to be great, an animal with some instincts of a god. His life, a story too common to be told. His deeds, a number summing up to naught. His consciousness, a torch lit to be quenched. His hope, a star above a cradle and grave. And yet a greater destiny may be his, for the eternal spirit is his truth. He can recreate himself and all around and fashion new the world in which he lives. He, ignorant, is the knower beyond time. He is the self above nature, above fate.
Starting with something super mundane. Thank you for tripping over that pronunciation. Andrea, I had to look it up. Like, we all know it means being satiated, but the pronunciation's tricky. Like, I just looked it up. Satiety.
Oh.
I've stumbled over that many times and I've just never looked it up. So thank you. Satiety.
Satiety. I always say satiety, but
Thank you for that. It's just a dreadful word.
Yeah, it's an odd conjugation. Yeah.
Yeah, satiety. So it is
S-U-H, satiety, T-A-H-Y, satiety. So 4 syllables. Anyway, thank you, Andrea. You reminded me that I've stumbled on that too many times to not look it up.
I with that every time.
Yeah. Hopefully now we'll at least remember our stumblings and walk a little straighter.
Maybe.
maybe not. Satiety.
So on the second page 75, there is that
UCase. I think. I'm pretty sure it's UCase.
And what does it mean, UCase?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Russian origin. I've looked it up. I've looked it up before. I've got the note right here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And so what does it mean? Sorry?
Edict.
Edict.
Or law.
Edict. Okay.
Or law. Yeah.
Okay. So this canto starts with a different take on things, right?
Uh-huh.
We're now
Good.
focused on looking at it as if it were a book, a manuscript in front of us, right? Or in relation.
Oh, what? I'm sorry. Say more about that.
Well, the canto, it starts off with this idea that we're dealing with a manuscript in some sense, that this is a writing with the act of writing.
What are you picking up on? Say more.
Hang on.
Text and glossary. I know that's the simile he's working with.
Yeah.
Yogically, we're moving from the canto before the secret knowledge was the yoga of the soul's release, the yoga of the king, the yoga of the soul's release. So it's more of like an individual process moving into a cosmic process.
Okay.
But I appreciate you pointing out that the similes that he's using.
So on page 76, a larger lit the mighty page. And then, anyway, it's several places where he's using this idea of the page. And
Yeah.
Yes, it's all over the text and glossary of the Veda. It starts on the first page. There's a book of beings index page.
Right.
Yeah, and is simile the right word? I actually don't know. Do either of you know? Like in the previous canto, when he was the sailor going into port, not knowing if he's got the right edict, hugging close to shore. There's all that sailing stuff. Is that a simile? I'm not sure. Yeah, neither of you know either.
Metaphor.
Well, I would have said an extended metaphor, but
An extended what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what it reminds me of is, I just remembered the word, the Akashic records, that he is now, he is, so the first line, this knowledge first he had of time-born man. And so he sees through the veils how we are put together and how limited we are in the, in the material creation, separated from the eternal. And that somehow that is all in the records, that he's able to read the records.
And he does this thing with the eternal on that same vein, this thing with the eternal's promise that starts at the bottom of page 75. In which he uses the word ukase, but it's like that eternal's promise to his laboring force. It's really beautiful.
I also noticed from our readings, Matteo, of the Vedas, there are many images here that echo what we're reading in the Vedas, right?
Yeah. All the basically in different language, he's putting, rather than putting the names of all the gods and goddesses, he's putting all the psychological significances, but we can tell that he's referring to them. It's quite complex in that way. The more time I spend with that, the more like cross-pollination I see. And people do have, this has been called, I don't know who said it first or what, but it has been called the fifth Veda, and I've read that multiple times. There are 4 Vedas, and people call this the fifth Veda. Not like the fifth Beatle. What?
This particular canto?
No, this Savitri.
Oh, yeah.
So the second section begins with a will, a hope immense now seized his heart. So I was sort of momentarily wondering what he was, but I
Well,
think
he's human. He is human, right? And
He
he
is Ashwapati, huh?
I found the answer at the end of that section where he says, "He ignorant is the knower beyond time. He is the self above nature, above fate." Or is that a different he?
No, that's Ashwapati also. So it's calling Ashwapati. Sri Aurobindo, the writer, is calling Ashwapati ignorant. However, with a lowercase I, however, capital K and capital T. This is kind of like he's toggling between the world of the finite, knower of the finite, ignorant. If you put a capital I for ignorant in Sanskrit, it would be avidya, which is a capital I. It's like the infinite correlation of ignorance. But here, lowercase I, and maybe I'm making an assumption, I don't know, but it seems that way to me. Knower beyond time. He's going through this Upanishad thing, toggling between ignorance and knowledge that he does that they do in the Isha Upanishad. And the he is Ashwapati.
And he is, after all, an ignorant human being, except he is on this incredible journey of discovery.
Yeah. Do we want to read it again? Do we want to move on?
Maybe we should move on, and if we have time later, come back and read it. I don't know. What do you think?
Should we do
I'm
another
fine
2
with
sections? Let's do another 2 sections. They're all pretty small.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Why didn't you start, Matteo? Because otherwise I just have 4 lines. So just read.
Good. Okay. His soul retired from all that he had done. Hushed was the futile din of human toil. Forsaken wheeled the circle of the days. In distance sank the crowded tramp of life. The silence was his sole companion left. Impassive, he lived, immune from earthly hopes. A figure in the ineffable's witness shrine, pacing the vast cathedral of his thoughts, under the arches dim with infinity and heavenward brooding of invisible wings. A call was on him from intangible heights. Indifferent to the little outpost mind, he dwelt in the wideness of the Eternal's reign. His being now exceeded thinkable space. His boundless thought was neighbor to cosmic sight. A universal light was in his eyes. A golden influx flowed through heart and brain. A force came down into his mortal limbs, a current from the eternal seas of bliss. He felt the invasion and the nameless joy, aware of his occult omnipotent source, allured by the omniscient ecstasy, a living center of the illimitable. Widened, a living center of the illimitable, widened to equate with the world's circumference. He turned to his immense spiritual fate. abandoned on a canvas of torn air, a picture lost in far and fading streaks. The earth nature's summits sank below his feet. He climbed to meet the infinite more above. The immobile's ocean silence saw him pass. An arrow leaping through eternity suddenly shot from the tense bow of time, a ray returning to its parent sun. Opponent of that glory of escape, the black inconscient swung its dragon tail, lashing a slumberous infinite by its force into the deep obscurities of form. Death lay beneath him like a gate of sleep. One pointed to the immaculate delight, questing for God as for a splendid prey. He mounted, burning like a cone of fire.
To a few is given that God-like rare release, one among many thousands never touched, engrossed in the external world's design, is chosen by a secret witness eye, and driven by a pointing hand of light across his soul's unmapped immensitudes. A pilgrim of the everlasting truth, our measures cannot hold his measureless mind. He has turned from the voices of the narrow realm and left the little lane of human time. In the hushed precincts of a vaster plan, he treads the vestibules of the unseen, or listens, following a bodiless guide, to a lonely cry in boundless vacancy. All the deep cosmic murmur falling still, he lives in the hush before the world was born, his soul left naked to the timeless one. Far from compulsion of created things, thought and its shadowy idols disappear. The molds of form and person are undone. The ineffable wideness knows him for its own. A lone forerunner of the Godward earth, among the symbols of yet unshaped things, watched by closed eyes, mute faces of the unborn, he journeys to meet the incommunicable, hearing the echo of his single steps in the eternal courts of solitude. A nameless marvel fills the motionless hours. His spirit mingles with eternity's heart and bears the silence of the infinite. In a divine retreat from mortal thought, in a prodigious gesture of soul sight, his being towered into pathless heights, naked of its vesture of humanity.
As thus it rose to meet him, bare and pure, a strong descent leapt down, a might, a flame, a beauty half visible with deathless eyes, a violent ecstasy, a sweetness dire, enveloped him with its stupendous limbs and penetrated nerve and heart and brain that thrilled and fainted with the epiphany. His nature shuddered in the unknown's grasp. In a moment shorter than death, longer than time, by a power more ruthless than love, happier than heaven, taken sovereignly into eternal arms, hailed and coerced by a stark absolute bliss, in a whirlwind circuit of delight and force, hurried into unimaginable depths, upborne into immeasurable heights, it was torn out from its mortality and underwent a new and bournless change. An omniscient knowing without sight or thought, an indecipherable omnipotence, a mystic form that could contain the worlds, yet make one human breast its passionate shrine, drew him out of his seeking loneliness into the magnitudes of God's embrace. As when a timeless eye annuls the hours, abolishing the agent and the act, so now his spirit shone out, wide, blank, pure. His wakened mind became an empty slate on which the universal and soul could write. All that represses our fallen consciousness was taken from him like a forgotten load. A fire that seemed the body of a god consumed the limiting figures of the past and made large room for a new self to live. Eternity's contact broke the molds of sense. A greater force than the earthly held his limbs. Huge workings bared his undiscovered sheaths. Strange energies wrought and screened tremendous hands, unwound the triple cord of mind, and freed the heavenly wideness of a God's gaze.
As through a dress the wearer's shape is seen, there reached through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. Increased and heightened were the instruments. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens. As from her failing hand the measures fell, atomic looked the things that loomed so large. The little ego's ring could join no more. In the enormous spaces of the self, the body now seemed only a wandering shell. His mind the many frescoed outer court of an imperishable inhabitant. His spirit breathed a superhuman air. The imprisoned deity rent its magic fence. As with a sound of thunder and of seas, vast barriers crashed around the huge escape, immutably coeval with the world, circle and end of every hope and toil, inexorably drawn round thought and act, the fixed, immovable peripheries effaced themselves beneath the incarnate's tread. The dire velamen and the bottomless crypt, between which life and thought forever move, forbidden still to cross the dim, dread bounds, the guardian darknesses, mute and formidable, empowered to circumscribe the wingless spirit in the boundaries of mind and ignorance, protesting no more a dual eternity, vanished, rescinding their enormous role. Once figure of creation's vain ellipse, the expanding zero lost its giant curve.
The old adamantine vetoes stood no more. Overpowered were earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. There was no small death-hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all-swallowing immensity. The great hammer beats of a pent-up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers. A boundless being in a measureless time invaded nature with the infinite. He saw, unpathed, unwalled, his titan scope. We're going to go to the next section.
I just want a little bit of help with this. So it's another stage in the encounter of Ashwarpati.
Yeah.
Ashwapati.
Ashwapati, yeah.
Right. But,
and it had this whole section at the first half of page 81, which was all about opposites and paradoxes, right? So from so a violent ecstasy, a sweetness dire, down to the end of the sentence at the bottom there. And underwent a new and bornless change. So it's all about opposites, right? Is that a fair?
no, I think it is all about the infinite powers of those states. The infinite is now inhabiting him in all its opposites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Okay.
And the other thing I wondered about, so the top of page 82, second line, unwound the triple cord of mind. Now, is the triple cord of mind? I'm just trying to remember what that is. Whether it's anything particular.
I'm trying to think of the simplest answer. Yeah, it's the triple mind is sense mind. It's which is the Sanskrit word is manas, our sense mind. Then it's buddhi, our budhi, our intelligent will, and then vijnana, which is the infinite correlation of that. That's supermind. So it's the triple mind, I would say, is and this comes from, if you would want to reference, Geoffrey, it comes from Secret of the Veda, the commentary on Surya Savitri, the one that we're going to next.
Okay.
Anyway, so sense mind, intelligent will, and supermind. That's a simplified answer.
Okay.
So you really think you really believe that the supermind is part of that? I think this is more the different levels of the human mind before supermind.
The heavenly wideness of a Godhead's gaze. That sounds like Supermind to me.
It freed, so it unwound the triple cord and freed the heavenly wideness of Godness.
The lower, okay.
So I think it unwound the lower levels of mind to open to the wider gaze.
Welcome, John Robert.
Thank you.
We're on page 82.
Okay.
Well, actually, we finished to the end of the section on page 83, and we're discussing the section.
Yeah, we were discussing 82.
Okay, good.
How are you, John Robert? Do you need anything to say, anything to get present? Is everything okay with the house?
Well, we have workers here. They're essentially going to demolish the shower and probably find mold and clean the mold.
Yay.
Good.
It's possible they may need something and have to knock on the door, but I doubt if they will. Karen's here too, so.
Shall I continue on page 83?
Sure. We'll need a new order to include John Roberts. So, Matteo, do you want to give us the order?
Yeah, if it's the same on my screen, it continues Andrea, Geoffrey, myself, and then John Robert. So we'll stay in that same order.
Okay.
Adding John Robert after me.
And I suggest, because I think we'll each get 2 pages to read, and it will almost be at the end. So why don't we read through to the end of the canto at this point?
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good to me. Can we pause and just do a 1-minute meditation before you start, Andrea?
Yes. All was uncovered to his seeless eye. A secret nature stripped of her defense, once in a dreaded half-light formidable, overtaken in her mighty privacy, lay bare to the burning splendor of his will. In shadowy chambers lit by a strange sun, and opening hardly to hid mystic keys, where perilous arcanes and hooded powers confessed the advent of a mastering mind, and bore the compulsion of a time-born gaze. Incalculable in their wizard modes, immediate and invincible in the act, her secret strengths, native to greater worlds, lifted above our needy, limited scope, the occult privilege of demigods, and the sure power pattern of her cryptic signs, her diagrams of geometric force, her potencies of marvel-fraught design, courted employment by an earth-nursed might. A conscious nature's quick machinery, armed with the latent splendor of miracle, the prophet passion of a seeing mind, and the lightning bareness of a free soul force.
All once impossible deemed could now become a natural limb of possibility, a new domain of normalcy supreme. An almighty occultist erects in space this seeming outward world which tricks the sense. He weaves his hidden threads of consciousness. He builds bodies for his shapeless energy. Out of the unformed and vacant vast, he has made his sorcery of solid images, his magic of formative number and design, the fixed irrational links none can annul, this criss-cross tangle of invisible laws, his infallible rules, his covered processes, achieve unerringly an inexplicable creation where our error carves dead frames of knowledge for a living ignorance. In her mysteries' moods, divorced from the Maker's laws, she too as sovereignly creates her field, her will shaping the undetermined vasts, making a finite of infinity. She too can make an order of her caprice, and if her rash superb wagered to outvie the veiled Creator's cosmic secrecies, the rapid footsteps of her fantasy, amid whose falls wonders like flowers rise, are surer than reason, defter than device, and swifter than imagination's wings. All she new fashions by the thought and word, compels all substance by her wand of mind. Mind is a mediator divinity. Its powers can undo all nature's work. Mind can suspend or change earth's concrete law. Affranchised from earth habits, drowsy seal, the leaden grip of matter it can break. Indifferent to the angry stare of death, it can immortalize a moment's work, a simple fiat of its thinking force, the casual pressure of its slight assent can liberate the energy dumb and pent within its chambers of mysterious trance. It makes the body sleep, a puissant arm holds still the breath, the beatings of the heart, while the unseen is found, the impossible done, communicates without means the unspoken thought. It moves events by its bare, silent will, acts at a distance without hands or feet.
This giant ignorance, this dwarfish life, can illumine with a prophet sight, invoke the Bacchic rapture, the Furies' goad, in our body arouse the demon or the god, call in the omniscient and omnipotent, awake a forgotten almightiness within. In its own plane, a shining emperor, even in this rigid realm, mind can be king. The logic of its demigod idea in the leap of a transitional moment brings surprises of creation never achieved, even by matter's strange unconscious skill. All's miracle here and can by miracle change. This is that secret nature's edge of might. On the margin of great immaterial plains, in kingdoms of an untrammeled glory and mind is master of the life and form, and soul fulfills its thoughts by its own power. She meditates upon mighty words, and looks on the unseen links that join the parted spheres. Thence, to the initiate who observes her laws, she brings the light of her mysterious realms. Here where he stands, his feet on a prostrate world, his mind no more cast into matter's mold, over their bounds in spurts of splendid strength, she carries their magician processes and the formulas of their stupendous speech, till heaven and hell become purveyors to earth, and the universe the slave of mortal will.
A mediatrix with veiled and nameless gods, whose alien will touches our human life. Imitating the world magician's ways, she invents for herself bound free will its grooves, and feigns for magic's freaks a binding cause. All worlds she makes the partners of her deeds, accomplices of her mighty violence, her daring leaps into the impossible. From every source she has taken her cunning means, the free love marriage of the plains, elements for her creation's tour de force. A wonder weft of knowledge incalculable, a compendium of divine inventions, feats she has combined to make the unreal true or liberate suppressed reality. In her unhedged Circean wonderland, pell-mell she shepherds her occult mightinesses. Her mnemonics of the craft of the infinite, jets of the screened subliminal's caprice, tags of the gramarye of inconscience, freedom of a sovereign truth without a law, thoughts that were born in the immortal's world, oracles that break out from behind the shrine, warnings from the demonic inner voice, and peeps and lightning leaps of prophecy, and intimations to the inner ear, abrupt interventions, stark and absolute, and the superconscious unaccountable acts have woven her balanced web of miracles and the weird technique of her tremendous art. This bizarre kingdom passed into his charge.
As one resisting more, the more she loves. Her great possessions and her power and lore she gave, compelled with a reluctant joy. Herself she gave for rapture and for use. Absolved from aberrations in deep ways, the ends she recovered for which she was made. She turned against the evil she had helped her engined wrath, her invisible means to slay. Her dangerous moods and arbitrary force she surrendered to the service of the soul and the control of a spiritual will. A greater despot tamed her despotism. Assailed, surprised in the fortress of herself, conquered by her own unexpected king, fulfilled and ransomed by her servitude, she yielded in a vanquished ecstasy, her sealed hermetic wisdom forced from her, fragments of the mystery of omnipotence. A border sovereign is the occult force. a threshold guardian of the earth's scenes beyond. She has canalized the outbreaks of the gods and cut through vistas of intuitive sight a long road of shimmering discoveries. The worlds of a marvelous unknown were near. Behind her, an ineffable presence stood. Her reign received their mystic influences. The lion forces crouched beneath her feet. The future sleeps unknown behind their doors. Abysms infernal gaped round the soul's steps and called to its mounting vision peaks divine. An endless climb and adventure of the idea there tirelessly tempted the explorer mind, and countless voices visited the charmed ear. 1,000,000 figures passed and were seen no more. This was a forefront of God's thousandfold house, beginnings of the half-screened invisible.
A magic porch of entry, glimmering, quivered in a penumbra of screened light, a court of the mystical traffic of the worlds, a balcony and miraculous facade. Above her, lightened high immensities, all the unknown looked out from boundlessness. It lodged upon an edge of hourless time, gazing out of some everlasting now. Its shadows gleamed with the birth of gods, its bodies signaling the bodiless, its foreheads glowing with the oversoul, its forms projected from the unknowable, its eyes dreaming of the ineffable, its faces staring into eternity. Life in him learned its huge subconscient rear. The little fronts unlocked to the unseen vasts. Her gulfs stood nude, her far transcendencies flamed in transparencies of crowded light. A giant order was discovered here, of which the tassel and extended fringe are the scant stuff of our material lives. This overt universe whose figures hide the secrets merged in superconscious light, wrote clear the letters of its glowing code. A map of subtle signs surpassing thought was hung upon a wall of inmost mind. Illumining the world's concrete images into significant symbols by its gloss, it offered to the intuitive exegete its reflex of the eternal mystery. Ascending and descending twixt life's poles, the serried kingdoms of the graded law plunged from the everlasting into time. Then glad of a glory of multitudinous mind and rich with life's adventure and delight and packed with the beauty of matter's shapes and hues, climbed back from time into undying self, up a golden ladder, carrying the soul, tying with diamond threads the spirit's extremes.
In this drop from consciousness to consciousness, each leaned on the occult inconscience power, the fountain of its needed ignorance, archmason of the limits by which it lives. In this soar from consciousness to consciousness, each lifted tops to that from which it came, origin of all that it had ever been, and home of all that it could still become. An organ scale of the Eternal's acts, mounting to their climax in an endless calm, paces of the many-visaged wonderful, predestined stadia of the evolving way, measures of the stature of the growing soul. They interpreted existence to itself, and, mediating twixt the heights and deeps, united, untied the veiled married opposites, united the veiled married opposites, and linked creation to the ineffable. A last high world was seen where all worlds meet. In its summit gleam, where night is not nor sleep, the light began of the Trinity supreme. All there discovered what it seeks for here. It freed the finite into boundlessness and rose into its own eternities. The inconscient found its heart of consciousness. The idea and feeling groping in ignorance at last clutched passionately the body of the truth, and the music born in matter's silences, plucked nude out of the ineffable's fathomless, the meaning it had held but could not voice. The perfect rhythm, now only sometimes dreamed, an answer brought to the torn earth's hungry need, rending the night that had concealed the unknown, giving to her her lost, forgotten soul.
A grand solution closed the long impasse in which the heights of mortal effort end. A reconciling wisdom looked on life. It took the striving ounce of mind and took the confused refrain of human hopes and made of them a sweet and happy call. It lifted from an underground of pain the inarticulate murmur of our lives and found for it a sense illimitable. A mighty oneness, its perpetual theme. It caught the soul's faint, scattered utterances, read hardly twixt our lines of rigid thought, or mid this drowse and coma on matter's breast, heard like disjointed mutterings in sleep. It grouped the golden links that they had lost and showed to them their divine unity, saving from the error of divided self the deep spiritual cry in all that is. All the great words that toiled to express the one were lifted into an absoluteness of light, an ever-burning revelation's fire, and the immortality of the eternal voice. There was no quarrel more of truth with truth. The endless chapter of their differences, retold in light by an omniscient scribe, traveled through this difference towards unity. Mind's winding search lost every tinge of doubt, led to its end by an all-seeing speech that garbed the initial an original thought with the finality of an ultimate phrase. United were time's creative mood and tense to the style and syntax of identity. A paean swelled from the lost musing deeps. An anthem pealed to the triune ecstasies. A cry of the moments to the immortal's bliss.
As if the strophes of a cosmic ode, a hierarchy of climbing harmonies, peopled with voices and with visages, aspired in a crescendo of the gods, from matter's abysses to the spirit's peaks. Above were the immortal's changeless seats, white chambers of dalliance with eternity, and the stupendous gates of the alone. Across the unfolding of the seas of self appeared the deathless countries of the One. A many-miracled consciousness unrolled vast aim and process and unfettered norms, a larger nature's great familiar roads. A franchise from the net of earthly sense, calm continents of potency were glimpsed. Homelands of beauty shut to human eyes, half seen at first through wonder's gleaming lids, surprised the vision with felicity. Sun belts of knowledge, moon belts of delight, stretched out in an ecstasy of widenesses, beyond our indigent corporeal range. There he could enter, there a while abide, a voyager upon uncharted routes, fronting the viewless danger of the unknown, adventuring across enormous realms, he broke into another space and time. End of Canto V, end of Book 1.
So the title of the canto is The Yoga of the Spirit, Freedom and Greatness. I wondered if somebody would like to speak to the title at all. I mean, I think I understand the connection between the title and the text, but I'm always interested in what the people who have more knowledge about this than I do have to say.
I think just to be really simple, the yoga of the king is Ashwapati's yoga, and this is the cosmic yoga, the uniting of the soul from the previous yoga of the king, the yoga of which was called the yoga of the semicolon, the yoga of the soul's release. That's like his individual contact with the soul being released, and now this is the spirit and him getting in yoga in union with the spirit, and that brings contact with the spirit's freedom and greatness, the vastness of that. That's why before we were talking about the Akashic field, and that all that stuff's pretty vast and cosmic. So that's my sensing of the title.
Thank you, that's helpful.
he always describes the difference from our ordinary state of consciousness, which is very small and limited. And then when this opening occurs to the infinite, then that infinite begins to infuse our human awareness. And there is that great, the spirit's freedom and greatness. And we transcend the little self.
And part of that's his vision of all the different worlds that he's mentioning in this. You know, having that unfold. He's talking about all the different mixtures of worlds in this. I don't have any direct line references, but it's here. And then he also mentioned sheaths. Those are the koshas, which are the I don't even know, like the finite correlate in contact with the lokas, the infinite. It's kind of all the, there's just so much beauty in here. I don't know what to say. It's just beautiful.
He's certainly not afraid of using what we would normally think of as abstract ideas, reality, truth, these things. For most people, you use them with parsimony because they're big words and they have, many, many associations for people. But he peppers his text with these, and it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's unusual,
Because he can.
Yeah.
Because he can. He got it.
Another thing I noticed on this reading, I suspect it's in all of the poetry that he has here, but I was particularly conscious of it today, I think because it's the alliteration that you often find in the text. So this bit that I stumbled over on page 84.
All the it's.
Amid whose falls wonders like flowers rise. So the F and the F, and then, and surer than reason, defter than devise, the D and the D, and there are lots of examples through the text. There was another one that I really liked. Jets of the screen, subliminals caprice. So the sound, the repeating of the sound gives this, I don't know, it's kind of a dance almost, the way that words. Yeah.
Larger, luster, lit. I remember a previous canto, long, lone line. And you read a section, I think, Geoffrey, that like 7 or 8 lines began with it's. I don't know where that is right. Where was that? Oh, on page 88. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines begin with the word it's. There's something poetically just so beautiful about that helps draw me in. Its shadows, its bodies, its foreheads, its forms, its eyes, its faces.
Does anybody know what exegete is?
Exegete?
Yes.
An exegete is someone who takes words and adds, like fills out definitions and makes them into something else. Marshall McLuhan was called an exegete. Douglas Copeland, some modern exegetes. Chogyam Trungpa was a total exegete. If anyone's read Chogyam Trungpa, he takes really common words and he just packs them with meaning to make something click in the brain. Sri Aurobindo's definitely, he almost defines exegete.
Where I'm familiar with the word exegete is people who interpret sacred text. So you have an exegete of the Bible, for example, someone who does commentary and takes the text and opens it up so that it's more accessible.
Okay.
There's one line, well, there's so many lines, but there's one line on the last page of this canto. Starts, well, let's do 2 lines. Above with the immortals, changeless seats, white chambers of dalliance with eternity. That makes me chuckle. It's near the top. It's about 10 lines down from the top of page 91.
Is dalliance to dally?
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of play around with, they're dallying with eternity.
Dilly dally.
Yeah, there you go.
Dilly dally with eternity.
Sri Aurobindo's humor comes in here really in unexpected places. But there's places like that where he says things that are funny. You know, like you put eternity together with dallying around. Just...
I agree. There's a lot of humor in reading this. He turns the words into unexpected ways, and then you're...
Yeah. There's such magnificence and royalty in these words, unlike anything I've ever heard. I mean, it's so kingly, way beyond kingly.
Empyrean.
Took the confused refrain of human hopes and made of them a sweet, happy cause, lifted from an underground of pain the inarticulate murmur of our lives and found for it a sense illimitable.
In a lot of ways, he's like using language to rewrite our consciousness, to rewrite our limitations. I think to plug us into these realities at best, if we're able.
Well, like the earlier canto, this one, it feels like just reading it puts you into a different state, right? Mm-hmm. So it does something odd and unexpected in a way to our inner state of being, if you like, just reading it, right?
Mm.
Well, he called it a transmission. It's a transmission. It's not just words, it's not just poetry, it's a transmission. And you receive it, you feel it. You know, the more you delve into it, the more you're able to receive it. And it changes my state.
So you mentioned, Matteo, about sort of recapping the process to this point. Did you want to do that now, or did you want to do that the beginning of next time?
I don't know. Yeah. yeah, maybe I'm happy to talk about it if anyone wants to, but I'm also happy to not talk about it. Yeah, what I had mentioned, John Robert, was at some point kind of going back into the table of contents and talking about the narrative arc going through and we've come from, and we'll just get back in touch with where we've come from, where we're going, where Savitri's going from here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Not only for us, but for anybody who might be watching, especially, people who are not familiar with it. That really gives kind of an anchor for the story-loving mind to help carry it along in these vastnesses.
Maybe at the beginning of our next reading, so that there's like a little synopsis before we continue.
And Marco will be with us, so he could take part in that too.
Yeah, good.
At the beginning, it makes good sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though I'm pretty familiar with the narrative arc, it still helps anchor me. There is something about for me personally, being with the story is just part. I love the story. To me, the story is so beautiful that it helps the mantra go in further. It kind of helps me dance with it, for lack of a better word. Does anyone know what, there's a few words that I don't know what they mean and I haven't looked them up yet. Purveyors, till heaven and hell become purveyors to earth.
Where is it, Matteo?
86, third line down.
Oh, I see.
I think it's just like commercial carriers or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then Circean, I don't know my mythologies.
Yeah, well, that's Circe. I noticed that when we got there. Circe is, of course, the goddess that turned Homer's sailors into pigs because they were rude and uncouth with her. So, but she was also a powerful, she was a magical witch kind of person. So I think it's the reference here is more to the magical side of Circe than the angry side, let's say.
In her unhedged Circean wonderland. What a beautiful line.
And I noticed I can't remember, hang on, I need to find it, but the reference to invisible wings at some point, and I thought, oh, that sounds like Milton. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that does. Yeah, and Sri Aurobindo loved Paradise Lost. I mean, the Paradise Lost was blank verse, Savitri's blank verse. That says something. Blank verse is not a common way to write. Yeah, Milton, I think, I'm not a scholar around this, but I think Milton was the first to do that. Does anyone else know? I mean, this is the 1600s.
No, Shakespeare was, I think. Shakespeare wrote a lot in blank verse.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
I don't know whether Shakespeare was the first, but
what about grammary? Is this a grain house? Tags of the grammary of inconscience?
It means an occult learning or enchantment.
Ooh, that's very different.
Because there's this whole section in the middle here where the metaphor in the first part was the manuscript and the book. It's the idea of secret signs and codes and the secret knowledge, right? In that sense. So I think that's what's going on there.
On page 85, I just love this build up to the line, all's miracle here and can by miracle change. That helps get me out of my small mind that thinks everything's going to be the same. That really human thing of, oh, we've always been at war, so we're always going to be at war. That type of thinking. We've always been corrupt, so we'll always be corrupt. It's really all these limiting statements. A line like this helps get me out of that.
I noticed he talks about, so that was an interesting reference at the middle of page 86, free love marriage. I thought that was more recent than Aurobindo, but I guess it wasn't.
He was ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
And then at the bottom of the page, of course, the sense of humor and the weird technique of her tremendous art. There's something, I mean, obviously it's powerful, but there's something a little bit quirky about that as well.
There is, yeah.
The next line says, this bizarre kingdom passed into his charge. And I think Sri Aurobindo is also reflecting how this is bizarre stuff. I mean, to ordinary mind, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's so complex and so full of light and surprise and impossibility to ordinary mind.
So that makes us bizarre too, but that's okay.
Definitely, definitely.
We knew that, Geoffrey.
I don't know of many groups of people where I can sit around and read a poem like this out loud with. It's,
No, not many.
Sri Aurobindo also often uses language that sounds like sexual metaphor to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he gets really explicit. Like, didn't we read a line something about edging, lust? I can't remember what the exact line is, but edging and lust came in the same line a couple cantos ago.
But doesn't that also come from the Vedas, Matteo? I think the Vedas also have a lot of imagery that's quite sexual in nature as well.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of progeny and things being created and alchemy of things mixing. And this has different translations through all our different chakras, and certainly in the lower chakras, it's that.
There's a line here. Well, there's a couple of lines. Her great possessions and her power and lore she gave compelled with a reluctant joy. Herself she for rapture and for use. That seems like to me that easily has, like sexual illusions. Kind of like reminds me a little bit of the Song of Songs in the Bible, which also has just overflowing with sexual and romantic imagery, or Probably what an enlightened person would say is the imagery of sexuality comes from there instead of this coming from the language of sexuality.
I mean, it is the ultimate love story, right?
Yeah.
It's the one for the one.
Because if I skip down about 10 lines from herself, she gave for rapture and for use, she yielded in vanquished ecstasy.
Yeah.
No kidding. No kidding.
What page are we on?
87.
Thank you.
Starts near the top of 87. And this kind of language he uses a lot of places in Savitri. I think it's in the last canto, there's a lot of it. And in the he and she passages that we read, there's a lot of it. So it's beautiful. And of course, we haven't come to the meeting of Savitri and Satyavan yet.
There's two people that organize the Sri Aurobindo Center in Berlin, Georg and Isa. And I was one time standing with Georg in Berlin at the top of an escalator waiting for Isa. And Georg just leans over to me and says, "The destined meeting place." That's where Savitri and Satyavan meet, Geoffrey.
Okay. So another word, I think I get it, but predestined stadia of the evolving way, that's page 89. So stadia, I mean, I see the link to stadium, but I'm not quite sure what stadia means there.
I think it's talking about stages.
Yeah, levels.
89, what line?
I don't have the line numbers, but about 12 down.
Okay. What's the line?
Predestined stadia of the evolving way.
I got it. Thank you.
I think Sri Aurobindo makes a reference to the supermind on this page, on page 89. A last high world was seen where all worlds meet. In its summit gleam, where night is not nor sleep, the light began of the Trinity Supreme. Or maybe it's the overmind, I don't know.
Because we had that discussion, maybe John Robert might have something today about the 3 chords of mind.
Oh yeah, you guys were talking about that when I came.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we and Matteo said sense mind, intelligent mind, and then supermind, and then Andrea said, "Are you sure it's supermind?" So
I think actually it's rather, I would say, or thought about it later, as the physical mind, the vital mind, the emotional mind, and the mental mind. I mean, that's a threesome of 3 levels of mind.
okay.
That's what I have written next to it, but I'm not saying it in an authoritative way. That's what it seemed to mean to me.
Yeah, page the top of 82, unwound the triple cord of mind and freed the heavenly wideness of a Godhead's gaze.
Yeah, well, those 3 do need to be unwound in order to have the the wideness of the Godhead's gaze.
I love how much the wideness, that concept of the wideness, comes in this whole canto. It comes back over and over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pointer to the Spirit's freedom and greatness.
Right.
Yeah, Sri Aurobindo time and time again goes into the true, the right, and the vast. And the Spirit's freedom and greatness, it's the vastness. Yeah, not just wideness, but height. And yeah.
Vast, yeah.
Yeah, vast. Brihat.
Yeah, this is one of those sublimely beautiful cantos of many. This one is my favorite one right now.
Yeah.
I just read 2 or 3 nights ago in a book of essays by Doris Lessing. She used the word "ukase," and I don't think I have ever seen it outside of this. I don't think I've ever read the word. I mean, other than looking it up, but I've never just been reading and had someone use the word "ukase." But sure enough, Doris Lessing did a couple of nights ago, or
It's
a few
1 week.
twice in 1 week.
You could probably get on Guinness Book of Records with that, Matteo.
Reading the word "ukase" twice in 1 week. Yeah.
All right, my dear ones, I'm gonna bye-bye, everyone. See you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Wonderful seeing you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Lovely reading.
Always a pleasure.
So, everyone, are we done?
I think so today.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Yeah, I guess the question is also, do we want to read it again next time after kind of reading it and talking about it? I guess we can decide next time, though, too.
And if Marco is going to be here, that would be nice for him to
It would
have
be
a
nice.
pass with us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, to rejoin. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're always in favor of rereading, aren't we?
We always are.
I am. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, depth is much better than being as shallow as a puddle. With something like this, rereading brings a lot more depth.
Until next time, everybody.
Okay, friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.